Hey everyone! Welcome to Tea and Biscuits with Tara and Bea. Obviously, you can see Bea is missing. She'll be here shortly, but we do have a lovely guest with us, Chasity Bowlin. You can say hi.
Hello, everyone.
So, obviously, we read. I'll give a little brief, but in our book club, we tend to have our audience pick it, and so we kind of have them put suggestions, and then they ended up choosing your book for October, which is obviously The Haunting of a Duke, and we really enjoyed it.
Yes, we did.
I'm so glad. Thank you all. Hi.
Yeah, thank you for being with us today. We are so excited.
No, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my gosh, yes, of course.
Of course. We have a few people. Hi, Paige.
Hey, Paige. Megan.
Hey, Megan. Hey, Vi.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
I love it.
So the gang is all here, most of them.
We're getting there.
Yeah. But again, Chasity was just telling me before we got on that this was her first ever book.
Get out!
Yeah.
I love it. Oh my goodness. That is so neat. I love that we started from the ground up. This is great.
You really did. You really did. I was telling her the story of, I'd always wanted to be an author. That was end goal, dream. One of these days, I'm going to do this thing. And I was working as a social worker at the time. Oh. And I wound up with swine flu because obviously I was going in and out of people's houses doing home visits. So when I was swine flu, and I wasn't super sick. I didn't feel bad. I just had a fever and couldn't go anywhere. And 3 days into this, I ran out of stuff to read. And this was all pre-Kindle. So I just started writing. I went through my laptop and found files that I'd started here and there. And I found one and I was like, okay, well, this is a good opening. I can go with this. So I just started writing. And by the time I could go back to work, I'd had the first 30,000 words written.
Stop.
And so that was I was like, if I can write 30,000 words, I can write the whole book. So let's just do it. And I made myself do it. And then I took off to New York for RWA with my freshly printed little manuscript. I'm going to go get a contract to be a big author. That did not happen. It did not happen. People did request copies. I did send it off. Kensington had it on their pile for 6 months. And then they finally just said, we just don't think that there's a market for ghost stories right now. So they passed on it. I published it with a small press. And it went nowhere because they just marketed it all wrong. You can't, the scenes with the ghosts and with Melisande, those are great scenes, but that's not how you sell a romance. They didn't have any interaction in their marketing packet between Emmy and Reese. So I'm like, you're just not hitting the market with that. So when I got the rights back, I self-published it. And that was a game changer for me. That was when I realized that I can do this and make a living at it. So that was a nice revelation.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
I will say I've enjoyed the paranormal aspects of the book. I thought that was really unique in historical romance. And I love that. But I obviously loved the romance too. I'm a romance reader.
The story of the love story has to be the central part of it. You can add murder, you can add ghosts, you can add witches and curses and spells and whatever you want to. But if you don't have that central love story, then you're not satisfying the reader. And I've always read romance. I mean, I've read other things. I used to read a lot of Stephen King and a lot of Anne Rice, but I always kept going back to Joanna Lindsay, Jude Devereaux.
Yep.
Yeah. I was way too young when I started reading romance. Way too young.
We hear that. I hear that. I'm like, oh, someone said the other day, I read my first when I was 12. I'm like, well.
Yes. We were in 6th grade study hall, passing it back and forth with sections highlighted.
I love that.
I mean, that was the only education we got. We went to school in the Bible Belt. I mean, if it hadn't been for romance novels, none of us would have known anything.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Oh
So,
man.
God bless Joanna Lindsay.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, no, everything else is just dressing. The love story has to be the heart of the book. And if it's not, then it's not a romance novel.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, when I was reading, I definitely feel like the romance was obviously at the forefront. So I really enjoyed it.
And in case you can't tell from the wall behind me, like I'm a no longer practicing goth girl.
Ooh. Oh, how fun. Oh, I love that. That is so neat. So you said you were writing because you didn't have anything else to read. Would you say that that's something before you started writing your own books? Was that something that you were really missing? Was the this paranormal element in a historical romance?
It was, because it was very, very difficult to find. I think at that point I'd run across two, and I'm gonna butcher her name. I remember her first name was Bobby, and the name of the book was Everlasting, and it was like a Scottish romance, Scottish ghost in a castle falls in love with this girl.
Yeah.
And I like that, but it's challenging for me because I'm a very grounded, reality-based person. So like the logistics of a living person falling in love with a dead person is very difficult for me to work into a book. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
But then Eve Silver wrote this incredible Gothic series. And it was that could be paranormal, could not be paranormal, Jane Eyre kind of thing. And between having discovered those two things, I thought, okay, there are other people out here who want this too. Yeah. So it no longer seemed like it was just completely outside the box. There was a box. It was a small box, but it existed.
This is a small one. So would you say that the vast majority of the books that you write are Gothic? Because I'm still learning about you. I was reading your bio, and I love how you said you watched soap operas and Scooby-Doo.
I did. Like, legitimately, my Barbie. I had this one Barbie doll that my brothers put gum in her hair, so we had to cut it all off and shave her head. And she became the evil twin who was locked in the attic. It's just,
As you do. Yeah.
As you do, exactly. There is always some element of like mystery, suspense, intrigue, danger. Because, like, again, the love story is central, but if you don't have some external conflict and it's all just this internal conflict with the characters, oh, I don't want to fall in love. I don't want to be committed. Oh, here's this person I can't stay away from. But, oh, I don't want that. That gets really old really quick. There has to be some setting event that brings them together and some continued conflict that forces them to stay together so that they have to really dig into what they're feeling and not just hang on to the made up conflict.
Yeah. I'd say, yeah, sometimes miscommunication tropes like that can get, just
there's
tiring.
Well, and there's an abundance of them. If that's what you want to read, that's everywhere. You can find that no problem. But there are a lot of people who don't necessarily want like the simple Regency ballroom farce.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
A lot of us have been gravitating towards like spies and things like that because it's like, oh, we're in the town and oh, I'm betrothed and oh, and it's just, and a lot of the recently mass published work, pretend what I'm saying makes any sense if you could. But like the big names, the big publishers are throwing out these historical romances that are not all that exciting.
I think they're all trying to capitalize on the juggernaut that is Bridgerton. Yeah. So they're all trying to create the next Bridgerton instead of, let's create a cross between Penny Dreadful and Bridgerton, and then we're going to make everybody happy.
Yes, I love Penny Dreadful.
All I can say about Penny Dreadful is everybody had syphilis. Everybody.
They did.
Like, we were 3 episodes in, and I looked at my husband, and I was like, "There's not a single person in this show that does not have a sexually transmitted disease." Oh my god!
So true. Oh my goodness.
Oh wow! Oh, that's too funny.
And then after you published this one, you said you self-published this one. Did you immediately start on the second one in the series? How did that go?
I did. I had held off on writing the second book in the series because the contract that I had signed with that small press gave them first right of refusal. So if I continued anything in the series before the rights reverted to me, I would have had to let them take first crack at it. And I didn't want to do that because they hadn't done a very good job.
Yeah.
So I switched gears for a little while, and I wrote like very short contemporary erotic romance.
Oh.
And published it under a pen name because, again, I was still doing social work and mental health counseling, and you don't necessarily want to write that kind of smut and have your clients find it. So,
oh goodness, it wasn't lining the walls of your office. Or...
No. It was very much on the down low. But everybody needs a secret life, at least for a little while.
Yeah,
that's right. This is
But once I got the rights back, I started on the second book, which is A Rogue to Remember. Or no, that's another series. The Redemption of a Rogue, which was Michael's story.
We need Michael's story.
I love Michael.
Michael. When I saw it, I was looking, I was like, oh, please tell me Michael's is next.
Yes, Michael and Spencer gets one as well.
I saw that. Okay, but here's my question. Does Larissa get one? Because I didn't see her. I looked at
Larissa and Spencer wind up together.
Oh, I missed you when they said, okay. All right, I'm loving this. Okay, sorry, I missed that part.
I thought it was going to be Larissa when I was reading. I thought it was going to be Larissa and Michael. But
that's what I thought.
No, because Michael needed somebody who didn't have the same kind of traumatic past that he did.
That makes sense.
He needed something a little different. The weird thing about Michael is that he was actually the first character. Like,
really?
Yes. I had started writing his story like way, way before I wrote The Haunting of a Duke. And then I was just like, I'd written a scene, which is like one of the opening scenes in The Redemption of a Rogue. And it was great. And I loved it. But I was like, I just don't know where to take it from here because I didn't really know who he was. So when I went back and wrote The Haunting of a Duke, I'm writing the secondary character and I'm like, why is this familiar? And then it clicked that I was taking that secondary character and it was the main character from that other story I'd started. So
I love it.
That's kind of how that happened.
It
was weird.
That's really cool. You know, we just found that out the other day. Tara and I are doing a read-along for Abby Jimenez, and she wrote her second book in her very first series before she wrote the first book. And it sounds like it unfolded very similarly. I wonder how often that happens. That's
I've never met her, but we are doing an event together.
Get out.
Wow. It's the Toledo Public Library AuthorCon, which is like November 2nd.
Oh, nice. That's coming up.
Yeah. And so she's going to be there. And so I'll have to mention that to her.
Mm-hmm.
That's been, I did not realize anybody else had that particular weird thing happen to them. So that's kind of nice to know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys are twins. I love it.
I was going to go to some of the comments, but Vi says, not going to lie, Spencer's my favorite. I loved him and Larissa.
Their book it goes to like some dark places. It's like there's a lot going on in there.
Oh my.
They wind up in this creepy castle in Scotland with all these players that are just very, very sus. You don't know who to trust through the whole thing.
Ooh.
It was good.
It sounds fun.
And there's I tried to do something different with every one of them. So with The Haunting of a Duke, we had the ghosts. We do have some ghosts in A Rogue to Remember, but the big thing there is, a Roman sex cult, because why not? And
Why not? That's Abby Jimenez did that too. No, I'm just kidding. She did not.
So, and then when I took it to Spencer's book and took them to Scotland, I thought, okay, so we're gonna have like some witches and some curses and things of that nature. So it, like, again, it gets pretty dark, but it's a romance novel, so you know it's going to end nicely. That's the good part.
That's the best part of romance.
Exactly.
You get the
guaranteed happy ending.
You gotta have it.
I'm permanently scarred from having read Old Yeller in school.
Horrible. Oh.
Aren't we all?
So Paige says, yes, I need the other characters' stories. I'm so excited to get Michael's story.
Everybody has a soft spot for Michael, and it's kind of impossible not to. He's such a beautifully broken character. He has this horrible traumatic past and all this guilt, and you just want him to be happy, but you just are never sure if he's going to let himself be.
Yeah. I love the epilogue scene. That was like, I loved it.
I cried when I wrote it. Okay. And I have cried every time when I've like gone back to edit and tweak, and every time I reread it, I cry. So
when she says
that's how you know it's good.
Married, and he says he's already married to her. I'm like,
yeah, that was
beautiful.
So good.
And she's like, no, you gotta let me go.
I liked that she kind of gave him permission to move on and have a life.
He needed that.
He did. He really did. And I talk about them like they're real people, because to me they are.
We always do.
They lived inside my head for a really long time.
I love that. Oh my gosh, so fun.
So Vi said, I binged the first 3 books in a week. They are so great. Highly recommend if you liked the first.
Oh, thank you.
Nice. Oh, how cool.
Definitely very dark.
I love that.
I am a dark girly, but Bee's a little bit opposite, right?
I'm a weenie. That's the clinical definition now. Yeah. No, I dip my toe in the dark a little bit, and then I'm like, oh, it's too cold.
And then sometimes I jump full force.
That's right. She's in the deep end.
Part of what allowed me to write these books is that they were the first ones I'd ever written, and I didn't know what the rules were. So I didn't have, I didn't have that box surrounding me of this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, and this is the lane you have to stay in. So I wrote what they tell you to write, which is what you want to read.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing. I was creating books that filled the gap that I was finding.
Yeah.
And like I said, I just didn't know. I will say, these being the first books that I wrote, it's funny to go back and reread them and see how much I've learned and how different my writing is now than how it was then. So sometimes I'm a little critical of them. I still love the characters, but I'm very critical of myself. So that can be hard, but I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah. I feel like that's like probably the process of a writer is you do have to go through that growth.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and you want to, I'm sure. You want to get better and better. Yeah.
Anything that you love and anything that you're going to devote that much of your time to, you're going to want to see improvement in it, because nobody wants to keep playing baseball if they never get better. I mean, that's just not.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel like not having known the rules when you first were starting out, do you think that made your writing it any better, or was there a pro specifically to that, do you think?
It just gave me the freedom to create this world that maybe didn't fit the norm of what most romance series are.
Okay.
It let me explore things a little bit more than I think a lot of people get to, especially if they have a more restrictive contract with their publisher.
Oh, sure.
And not having a publisher, I could just do what I wanted to and throw it out there. And that was the Wild West, because this was, I think, 2014 when I published that book, which was like Wild West days of independent publishing. You could do anything. I mean, it was pre-Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah.
So it was definitely very different then. I don't know if I wrote that book today, if it would find an audience the way that it did then.
Oh, wow.
So
I love that.
Yeah. I could see that being very, just because of some of the themes are darker, it might.
Yeah, and there was no such thing as a trigger warning in a book when I wrote those. That didn't happen.
Yeah,
nobody. It just
not
wasn't.
2014.
No.
Yeah,
it was a very different time.
I was going to ask, what, like, I guess, other than you wanting it, what led you to like writing? Like, what made you, other than you saw a deficit in the market? Like, is there anything that, like, paranormal wise, like, how did you want to add that in, other than being a goth girly?
I can tell you some ghost stories. Not all of that came from the imagination.
So you've seen ghosts?
I have.
Oh, I want to hear this. I want to. That was going to be one of my questions. I'm so excited. Okay, go. Let's do it.
So when I was in college, I moved into this apartment, and I'm not somebody for white walls. I don't, I like some color.
Gotcha.
But this apartment had one color, and it was a terrible color because every room had been painted Pepto-Bismol pink. Oh. It was atrocious.
No.
Yes, it was so ugly.
I was going to say beige.
But our landlord told us we could paint whatever color we wanted to. So we're like, okay, that's good. So we moved in first, and then we've got all the furniture moved out away from the wall so that we can paint. And you know how in like mid-century houses, they had that little shelf between the kitchen and the living room for all your Granny's knickknacks?
Yeah.
So it had one of those. So we were taking a break from painting. I was sitting on the couch, which was about 3 feet out from the wall. My roommate and a friend who was helping us were sitting on the love seat, which was like perpendicular to it and also about 3 feet out from the wall. On that shelf behind me was a bucket that had all of our cleaning supplies, like paper towels and whatever in it. Because none of us paint without making a mess. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if I heard something or if I felt something, but I kind of ducked to the side, and that bucket flew past my head and landed in the middle of the room.
No way.
And our friend who was sitting with my roommate, like, we had to chase her down the driveway. She was out the door and gone.
Like, I'm gone.
Gone.
I'm glad other people were there.
He's going to survive a scary movie.
So, I mean, there were a lot of things in that apartment that happened like that. So we obviously did not live there for very long. But I'd grown up with a very, very Baptist mother. And quite frankly, the devil himself would not have entered our house because he would have been afraid of her. So, I'd never had anything really paranormal happen to me until I moved away and went to college. And then, like, it was a free-for-all. It happened all the time. And that's apparently not uncommon with people on my dad's side of the family, because I've had lots of conversations with them over the years, and they've told me things like that. After my mother died, my mother came to me. And it was very soon after. I was having a really rough night, and I just thought, screw it. I'm going to go to bed and cry myself to sleep, and we'll be done with it. And I literally felt like she laid down in the bed behind me and put her arms around me. That's what it felt like. And it was incredibly comforting. There was nothing in it that was scary, or it felt like getting a hug from your mom.
Oh.
And I know specifically that was on a Wednesday night, because that was back when Ghost Hunters was on Sci-Fi, and we watched it every Wednesday. And I was skipping it that night just to go to bed. That weekend, on Friday, my dad and I were leaving to go to Ohio to visit his sister. And we're in the car, and just apropos of nothing, my dad says to me, "So your mom came to me the other night." And I was like, okay. And I just let him tell me. I didn't fill in the gaps for him. And he said that he was standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes, and it felt like she walked up behind him and put her arms around him. Oh. And it was the same night, and it was the same experience.
Wow.
So that was really interesting for me.
I love it.
So yeah,
love it.
I was thinking
the spooky ghost story and the good ghost story, which is kind of how I write them. So.
Yeah.
That's
Two
what I
ends of
think.
the spectrum.
Oh my goodness, what am I? I'm drawing a blank now. Emmy, her family kind of. There's a mention of like her family always having like these abilities, you
Yes.
know, and like her sister has it, she has it, and then on her dad's side.
Yeah.
And
And
I thought that was
I never actually made that correlation. I didn't, that never even dawned on me. But yeah, there is
Tara.
a parallel there.
I was like,
that's
oh.
really neat. I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. So in the rest of the series, do we see more of the family members and more? I mean, it's still, is it spooky throughout? It must be, right?
Well, okay, so after the third book, I kind of changed gears a little bit, and they're not all interconnected anymore. It's more that they're connected by theme than by characters.
Oh.
So you have A Love So Dark, which
Mhm.
is very much like a slightly different version of Jane Eyre.
Oh.
And it's less paranormal and more traditionally gothic, but still kind of dark. And then A Passion So Strong, which is definitely paranormal. We have I was very much influenced by practical magic. So we have these two kooky ants that are just lots and lots and lots of fun.
Oh, fun.
But it is still, again, dark because I don't know how to do it any differently.
I mean, it's called Dark Regency.
Exactly.
Oh, look at you, girl. Go for it. She's got
You're
all,
so awesome.
I love it.
Just so you guys could see.
And so not a lot of people know this, but I designed these covers myself.
Get out.
I was going to ask that because they're just stunning.
Yeah.
And like, I am not a graphic designer by any stretch of the imagination, but I knew what I wanted and I knew the look that I was going for. So I did these, and then the Redemption of a Rogue and the Haunting of a Duke, they've gotten new covers very recently because as I've gotten better at doing that, I've gone back and updated them to make them more, well, just better.
Is this one the new cover then?
That is the new cover.
This one's the new cover.
Oh, okay, yay!
I've also seen because there's a lot. I think I have a picture of it, but I saw that there's a lot. Are these all like ones that you've done?
So the one where you see the house and the couple kind of off to the side, that was the cover that the small press that I published with first did.
Okay.
And then the one that is next to the new cover, I don't know if you all know who Jimmy Thomas is.
No.
Probably nobody knows him anymore. He was a cover model who had his own site where he sold stock photos.
Okay.
And he liked to brag about how many romance novels he'd been on, but he was basically just a terrible human being and an awful misogynist and like to fat shame everybody. And
oh no,
I got really fed up with him. So I redid all of my book covers that he was on and just dumped him. So that's why we got the next cover.
Gotcha.
And then again, like I said, as I got a little bit better, I just upgraded.
Yeah. I love it.
So that's the story of the cover.
We love cover
evolution.
We love talking about that. It's so fun. Terry asked a good question. If you use 3D design.
No.
How do you design them?
It is like the most non-graphic designer thing you could ever use. It's like a little subscription service that I pay $15 a month for. It's called PicMonkey.
Okay. And I feel like I've heard of PicMonkey.
To me, it is much more user-friendly than like Photoshop, because I've tried Photoshop and frankly, I just feel lost and overwhelmed when I get in there and look at that dashboard where I don't know what any of the tools do. So that's why I use PicMonkey. And I know some people will do Canva and other things to create book covers, but
I think that's where I was looking between for like Canva and PicMonkey when I first started BookTube. And I ended up going with Canva because it was just more popular at the time.
Yeah, and it is. And there are a lot of people who do great covers in Canva, but it's just not something. I didn't want to take the time out to learn something new because PicMonkey was actually around, I think, before Canva was.
I think so.
And like, if I don't have to learn something new with my poor old tired brain, I'm not gonna.
That's how I feel about TikTok. Every time I try to get on TikTok, I'm like, I'm doing it, getting on TikTok, and then I'm like, run away! It's weird. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah,
too much.
I downloaded it one time, and I was like, I can't. I'm too old for this site.
I like open it, and I'm like, what's happening? There's so much happening.
So weird random fact is that I got COVID in 2022, and I wound up having a stroke after having COVID.
Oh my.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like literally a week into the COVID, I finally got a negative test, and we were testing every day because my son was scheduled to get ear tubes. So we had to have a negative test to get into the surgery center so he could have this thing that had already been rescheduled once because we all wound up with COVID.
Oh gosh.
And that Saturday night we were sitting around watching Reacher on Amazon Prime. We'd binged the whole thing and we're on the last episode. I was like, oh, I feel really funny. And then like I just could no longer feel my right arm. Like it just wasn't there. It wasn't like it just didn't exist. Like my husband tried to hand me something and I reached for it with my left hand because this was just gone. Like it never existed.
My.
So we left, had a friend come sit with Nathaniel, immediately went to the hospital. And the upset is that I don't have any real significant deficits from that.
That's good. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
But I have developed attention deficit disorder. And that makes TikTok really, really bad for me. Long story short, TikTok terrible for me. Because I get on there and I mean to do work stuff and I wind up watching, random videos of stupid things. So
yeah.
The doom scroll.
Yes.
I don't doom scroll anything. If I see things that are political or just like, I just move on. I can't do anything about this, so I'm not going to give it my energy.
Yeah.
And I'm 50 years old with a toddler, so energy is at a premium.
Bless you. Bless you.
It's not for the faint of heart.
I do want to go back to Mary because Mary just said that those covers that you created are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
The other covers I really love are the Hellion Club.
Those are done by Dar Albert. She does all the covers for Dragon Blade Publishing. And she is just phenomenal. She's amazing. Like I aspire to that one day. If I'm probably not going to get there. We can all have dreams.
Right,
exactly. It's important.
Dreams. And then Paige said those covers are beautiful. They definitely give off a dark vibe that lets me know I'm getting a darker but still a romance story. I do agree. I do think that you can tell just like off this one especially, I feel like that it's going to be dark and like, I feel like atmospheric.
Yes.
And like it gives that vibe. So you kind of know.
Yeah.
But obviously for romance too.
I mean, like there's a certain aesthetic that I am drawn to. Again, look at my office. Only the relatively clean part. Ignore the stacks of books here that are set to go to Cleveland or Toledo.
Yeah.
I've done so many signings in Cleveland. That's on the brain. I mean, seriously, I've been there a lot. And I had to schedule those because my husband wanted to go see the Christmas Story house.
I love it. That is so cute.
But yeah, there is a particular aesthetic, and there are a lot of people who again, they don't want just the light, happy, farcical, Regency romance. I mean, like those are fun. Don't get me wrong. I've read my share of them and I've enjoyed them. But that's just there has to be more than one flavor. There has to be.
Yeah. There's more than one flavor of reader, so
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and everybody hits that wall of like, I just don't want to read this because I've read it so much already. Give me something else.
Yeah. I definitely think, that's definitely sometimes in historical romance, especially, you can hit that wall pretty quickly. Especially if you're like, you read a lot of that genre or a genre in general.
Is there a cutie coming? Oh, I'm excited. Oh,
hi.
Oh my gosh, precious.
Couldn't stay away from mom.
Go back to daddy, okay?
So cute.
Yeah, you're 4.
You're 4? Oh my god, I have a 4-year-old too. I love it. 4-year-olds are so cool. He just had a birthday, right? Was it him that just had the birthday last weekend?
Yeah.
Oh, how fun. 4-year-olds are great. They're so great.
Are. I haven't had one in a few years, but I believe you.
4-year-old girls are sassy.
Oh,
tell you
goodness.
that.
No, but you gotta go back to daddy.
He's precious.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's so precious.
I love his little overalls too. Little boys in overalls. It's just
yes.
That's like my favorite thing to dress him in. Because with his hair, he looks like Dennis the Menace.
I love it.
So cute.
Oh.
And like, if you all want to see something that will just amuse you to no end, go visit my Facebook page. We took a video of him dancing at the Halloween party last night, and it's the best thing ever.
So cute. I love that. Oh my gosh.
He is definitely not shy.
I feel like 4-year-olds tend, or like that when they're that young, they're like, I'm just gonna be myself.
And they think they're the
and
best
everything. They just, it's like go hard or go home. I mean, they don't do anything by half measures.
That is true. That's very true.
So I was going to ask, what is your most like recent series? If people want to keep on, I mean, they obviously can keep reading this series, but what is your most recent ones?
So right now, the thing that I'm still working on is the Hellion Club, which started, it was going to be a 7-book series for Dragon Blade.
Oh, wow. And I think this one is book 9, right? The one that was just published in September?
Yeah. So there are actually 9 books. I'm currently working on the 10th, which is called Has Anybody Seen My Earl?
Like, has anybody seen my car? That's weird.
Or girl.
Yeah.
So, and there are, I want to say like 3 or 4 connected novellas now.
Oh.
And there are at least, that is my kid. That is not the dog. That is not the cat. That is my kid sitting.
You're fine. You'll hear one of mine eventually.
Mine have been banished outside. They're having a good old time. They've been playing and running around, so they're good.
But yeah, so there are, including the one I'm currently working on, there are at least 5 more titles planned for that series.
Okay.
So,
and I saw that, was it yesterday? I want to say yesterday. The anthology was just published.
Yes, and that is a Hellion Club connected novella that's in there.
Oh, okay.
I was going to ask. It's called The Night We Met.
Yeah.
How fun.
Hang on, I'm going to send my husband a message.
I just did that a minute ago. Because the dog is at the door. I was like, can you help me? He wants to come in.
I mean,
it's real life, people. Real life.
It's live, y'all.
Nothing goes smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. She also did another really cute, or I'm saying like you're not here. I didn't get a chance to read it because I unfortunately overbook myself with arcs that I have to physically read. And then when there's something on my Kindle Unlimited, I don't always get a chance. But I really, I heard great things about the anthology that was published over the summer. Hot Duke Summer, I want to say. I could.
Yes.
But you were in that one as well. Do you enjoy being part of anthologies, or how do you
I
feel?
do. I like it's a totally different process and a different kind of emotional process to write like a 12,000 word novella.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's enough. No, sir.
Can I just tell you how much better this makes me feel about what goes on in my house? Because I was going to present the other day at like doing something like this, and it was my turn. And my 4-year-old, who I had set up, I got her mac and cheese. I got her ice water. I put on her favorite show. I was like, Mommy just needs a couple minutes. She's like, I'm good, Mommy. And the minute it was time for me to talk, she's like, I really want popcorn now. I'm like, go away. I love you, but please. But I really need popcorn.
Well, and again, like I said, we went to that Halloween party last night. So
Yeah.
he was up about 2 hours past his normal bedtime. So he's off his routine today, and that's probably not helping.
Yeah.
And he did not take a long enough nap.
Oh, isn't that the way? That's the way.
So, but anyway, so the novellas, it's just a really different process. It's a lot of fun to write something, and it's also kind of challenging to keep yourself within that word count and not let the story grow.
Sure.
I guess how do you even like go about like do people approach you for anthologies? Like how does that work?
So Dragon Blade, which is the publishing company that I do still write independently, but I also write a lot of different books for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they will plan themed anthologies around holidays. Like we'll have the summer ones, and I'm signed up to do another one for this coming summer.
Okay.
They'll do them at Christmas time, and then they always do a Halloween one because Catherine Levesque, who is the publisher and the founder of Dragon Blade, she's a spooky girl too. She likes that stuff.
I love it. And does she remove the previous years when she puts out a new one? Because I've looked in the past and then I can't find them.
Yes. After usually because I think the contracts for the anthologies are only for like a year.
Wow.
And because all of the books are tied into individual series, because that's what she asks us to do, is to write something that connects to an existing series, then she'll take it down and it'll be republished and put just with the series versus with the anthology, because that makes it easier for people to find it.
Okay. Interesting. Because I had put something on my TBR, like I think it was like last Halloween. I'm like, I'm going to read it next year. And I put it on my TBR for this October, and I looked for it. I was like, it's gone.
I did just share a link on Facebook that Dragon Blade is doing a promotion this weekend where they've got like 10 free paranormal books, like novellas that are from these anthologies. So you can go, and mine is one of them. So you can just go grab those.
Well, I know what I'm doing after this.
And is that where you mostly are? Where like, I know I obviously contacted you through Instagram, but like, are you mostly like
I mostly do Facebook just because it's easier, because I can post something on Facebook and send it to Instagram when I remember.
Gotcha.
I remember. Don't always remember. But yeah, and again, Facebook, it allows me to keep up with people, because a lot of authors will have like a separate personal page and a separate, professional page. I have a like page, but I rarely use it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too close to the friend limit yet. So if anybody wants to friend me, feel free. That's whatever. I post cute pictures of my kids, and I tell you funny stories about the crazy things that happen in my life. So,
great.
And it's kind of a free for all. So it's friends, readers, fellow authors, family members, everybody's all on one.
Nice.
Okay. Because in the our section below, I put where to find you, and Instagram was one, and then Goodreads. But I was like, I'll add Facebook too. So
yeah, that's usually where I'm the most accessible.
Gotcha.
Because I don't always remember to check Instagram. So
yeah.
Well,
there's so many sites now, like so many different things that you can't be everywhere.
No. And that's the thing, is like every time you turn around, a new one will pop up. And you never know if it's going to last or not. So can you afford to take the time to learn and build an audience on a new site?
Right.
And have it go away?
You, MySpace. I'm just kidding.
Find me on MySpace.
There was like Google Plus for a while. And there was like Love Bites, I think, was like
so many.
And then like there was
Twitch. I think it was Kaylani was like, look for me on Twitch. I'm like, what?
Twitch is the one too that people do. But I feel like Twitch is maybe geared towards gaming.
It is a very techie driven space.
Yeah.
And I am so not. My husband is a gamer. I am not. My hand-eye coordination was never good enough for that.
I'm terrible too.
That's what I can do, but I can't play a video game. Oh my goodness. Terry did say she loves anthologies and she usually reads a couple annually. And then Paige says she loves that she can get novellas in print, but she prefers to read physically and love when I can get a novella series in print. I agree. Yeah, I like to read physically. Although lately that hasn't been something I've been able to do because of life.
She's a busy gal.
The older I get, the more I become specifically a Kindle reader because I can blow the text up until there's literally, you can't even fit a whole paragraph on the screen of my phone.
Right?
That's how I read now.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I was like, do I need reading glasses the other day? Because I was like this.
The answer is yes, if that's what it's like. You move the book in and out trying to get it into focus and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Too funny. Oh, I have a question. Can I ask another question, Tara?
Of course.
I didn't want to be like, asking too many.
No, you're good.
So you also have written the contemporary, is it Bellevue series?
The Bellhaven Hotties series.
Bellhaven. Yeah. I always get those two. Bellhaven Hotties. Do you enjoy writing contemporary? Like, have you done that more recently? Tell us about that.
I do. I like the convenience of writing a contemporary because I don't have to figure out how long it would take for me to go from here to yon on horseback or in a carriage. And, zippers and cell phones make for a much more convenient plot device.
And then he called her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just sent a text. It was good.
Are these more dark too? Like on the
No, these are just very low angst, small town contemporary romances with primarily blue collar or working class people.
Okay.
And I'm co-writing them with Laramie Briscoe, who is like one of my best friends. And we have this kind of neat process where we start the project in Google Docs, and like one of us will write like a prologue that we attach to the previous book. And that sets up the next book in the series. So then we'll start with a chapter. She'll write one from the male perspective. Then I'll write the female character's perspective in the following chapter. And we just trade back and forth. But what's really good about that is that when you read what the other person wrote, it gives you ideas. It sparks your creativity. It helps move the story along really fast. Because we sit down and honestly, I think we wrote the last one in 10 days.
Wow.
So
it's amazing.
It's a lot of fun. This is such a solitary process that getting to share it with somebody once in a while is a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary asked, how spicy are they?
They're pretty spicy.
Okay.
I saw that when I was looking at them. I was like, these do look spicy.
How many chili peppers? No, just kidding.
No, we don't. We have known each other for a really long time. We actually met in 2014 in a writing group in Kentucky. And like I'm like my son, I am not shy. And she is oddly enough really shy. But I just walked right up to her and I'm like, oh, you're Laramie. Hi. and just went on with it.
You're gonna be my friend.
Yeah, and since then we've supported each other through a lot of kind of difficult things. And I think that's what helps with the not arguing, is that this is not just a professional relationship. We've both had a lot of struggles personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of respect for each other as authors and as business people, but also as just individuals. And
that's amazing.
It's just been a great process for us. It's helped us both kind of fall in love with the process of writing again. And that's important, because this is something I love to do, but when you take something that you love to do and you also make it your livelihood, it changes the relationship that you have to those particular skills. So it's nice to be able to reconnect with writing just being fun and not feeling that pressure to, is this marketable? Is this something I can sell? Is this something that's going to help me pay the tuition for my son's very expensive private daycare that he's going to? I mean, it's a great problem. They have goats and llamas and bunnies, and he loves it. And
what?
Yeah, it's called
the llamas at the preschool.
And they literally all of their lessons are outside. Everything is done in nature. Everything is nature based.
I love it.
He gets to hike and run and do all the things, which is great
awesome.
because I'm not going to do those.
I think it's wonderful for like boys. I have 2 boys, and like just they need to be outside.
Yes.
They need to be like doing things all the time.
You know, I'm fat, 50, and I have bad knees, so I'm not taking hiking. So
this is the perfect time for them to get it. They get it somewhere else.
But
I was hoping that with carving pumpkins. I'm like, you're going to do it at school. Carve the pumpkin at school. You don't need to do it at home.
We paint ours.
Smart.
There
We
you
get
go.
stickers too. The stickers are a lot of fun.
Oh,
Brilliant.
About
Brilliant. So does Laramie write on her own as well? Is she an author in her own right?
Yeah, she is. She's a very successful contemporary author. She started out writing MC, like kind of Sons of Anarchy-esque contemporary. And then she has done the Rock and Country series, which is all about musicians and rock stars. And then she's done also a lot of stuff about first responders, like the Moonshine Task Force and Laurel Springs.
Oh, fun.
So she's incredibly prolific. If you're looking for contemporary romance and you want somebody whose backlist you're never going to exhaust, she's your girl.
When I first looked at your backlist, I was like, "Ooh, wow, you have an extensive one as well."
I have written, I want to say somewhere in the neighborhood of, like, if you count like novellas and contemporary and all of it, I want to say 90.
Wow.
And again, I wrote The Haunting of a Duke. I finished it in 2011. So 90 books in 13 years. I feel like I'm doing okay.
Wow. Yeah. You're doing amazing.
Wow.
And I finished a master's degree and worked a full-time job for a lot of that, and got married and had a kid. And
yeah.
So
I'm exhausted.
I didn't watch a whole lot of TV for a really long time.
I was going to say.
Something had to go, and that was it.
I love it. Does Laramie ever think that she's going to write historical like you do? Are you going to convince her?
I don't think that she will. It's just not really part of her process. She reads it. She likes it. But like, every author has their own distinct voice. And some people have a voice for historical romance and some people don't. And I'm not saying that you can't develop that. You can, but there's a learning curve. And some people just don't want to make that. And I get that. I do. Like, I couldn't write MC books.
Right.
I know I couldn't. I think somebody asked about the Bourbon and Blood series.
Yes. Terry, she said, "Can you talk about Bourbon and Blood?"
So
it seems appealing to her, is what she said.
Bourbon and Blood is my problem child. I love this series, and I love these characters so much, and they live in my head even now because I haven't gotten to finish this series because it just never found an audience. And part of that is me. I don't know how to market contemporary romance. I don't. It's just not. I don't have an established audience to market that to, and that makes it problematic.
Interesting.
But it's set here in Kentucky. The premise is that there are two feuding families in a small town, the Hayes family and the Darcy family. The Darcy family owns a distillery that at one point in time in previous generations, the Hayes family was also a partner in. And how they stopped being a partner in it is under some debate. So the series opens with the first book, Bennett, which is about Bennett Hayes and Mia Darcy, and they're kind of the star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet. I love that. There's a lot of angst in this book, and I wrote it in a really interesting way where I wanted to kind of bring back that soap opera thing where you would get the same scene, but from different perspectives. So there are things that happen in book one that also happen in book two, but instead of it being from the perspective of Bennett or Mia, it'll be from the perspective of Mia's brother, because that's his book.
Okay.
It was way more complicated than I anticipated it would be to do that.
She's reading her old books. Like, wait, what?
I was constantly having to reference the previous book to make sure I got it right.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, I love it. Those characters, I mean, I'm from Kentucky. I've lived here my entire life. Well, from Tennessee. But it was like I could see Kentucky from my front porch. It was so intertangled that like my grandmother who lived 3 houses down from me, she had a Tennessee address and a Kentucky phone number. At the top of the hill, we had the Kentucky address, but the Tennessee phone number.
Oh, wow.
And I went to school in Tennessee. So technically my house was in Kentucky, but my affiliation was to where I went to school, which was Tennessee. It's very complicated. Border towns will always make life interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to tell you a story about a bank robber, but that we're just not even going to go there.
Oh my goodness.
I do have a question. I saw Seraphina Donovan. Was that your?
That was my old pen name.
Okay, when you were working as
those were very spicy. Those were incredibly spicy.
Okay, because I was like,
So
it's Seraphina Donovan and Chasity Bowlin. So I was curious
how that came about. Was that when I went to RWA to sell The Haunting of a Duke, because I knew it was going to be just this massive bestseller hit that everybody was going to love. I was having conversations with all these published authors, and they were talking about the fact that writing historical romance didn't make them a lot of money because they only got paid quarterly. From the big traditional publishers. Now, if you're self-published, it's a totally different ballgame. But the erotica publishers, those paid monthly.
Wonder why.
I am Appalachian, and we are an inherently practical people. That's how we live. So I thought, okay, well, and then the other part of it was that when I was pitching The Haunting of a Duke, the one thing that they kept asking me was, well, what's your publication history? Well, I don't have one. So I'm like, I need to get some publishing credits under my name so that people know I'm a safe bet. They're not going to offer you a contract for a book if they think you're a one-off. It's just not, because there's no money in that.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, I can do this. So I went home and I started researching, like, what's the best-selling genres and subgenres in erotica. It's like paranormal and menage. Okay, well, I'll write a paranormal menage. So I did.
Well, there you go.
I sat down, I read through a few, figured out how to make all the pronouns work because there are a lot of them in a menage. The logistics of writing that was kind of
the logistics in
it
itself.
escaped me a little bit. So I had to line that out. And once I did that, I sat down and I wrote like this 12,000 word paranormal menage in like a week. And then I took another week to go back and review it and edit it. And I shipped it off to this publisher. And like a week later, they sent me a contract. And
wow.
that, oddly enough, was the first thing that I published that ever allowed me to think I can actually make a living at this. The first 4-digit royalty payment I ever got was from them, and I used it to buy a new washer and dryer. So,
I love it.
Practical. So practical.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, so that's how Serafina Donovan came about.
Okay.
And again, like I said, I was doing social work and counseling, and I wasn't buying any new appliances on that salary.
I bet not.
You mentioned that you're an Anglophile. Have you been to England?
I have. I've been very blessed. I got to go to England. I've been to Ireland.
Oh, fun.
I've been to Romania.
Oh.
And then I got to go to Scotland.
And would you say that those trips have helped you kind of get your feet wet in terms of writing? Because yeah, you said you love writing about England.
And I feel like the third book is set in Scotland, right?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, that book was written before I went to Scotland. They did help. They did. I went to England in 2005, and then Ireland in 2006, Romania in 2007, and then I didn't get to go back to Europe for a few years. It was like, I want to say 2013 when we went to Scotland. And I did all this with my former roommate, because this was back before I met my husband and stuff. But it all started just sort of randomly. I was in grad school. We were looking at maybe taking a spring break trip. We wanted to go to Las Vegas because we thought, well, that's, doable. And we started looking and we realized that we could go to England as cheaply as we could go to Las Vegas. And I'm like, well, screw it, I'm going to England. So we got our passports and we went.
Oh, that's
and I was such a hot mess. Like we went to the British Museum and I looked at the Rosetta Stone and I cried. We went and sat in Poets Quarter and Westminster Abbey and I cried.
Oh,
we went to Bath and I saw the Jane Austen Museum and I cried.
Oh, I'd love to see
I
that.
love it. Oh, that's wonderful.
But yeah, that was. If you ever get a chance to go, I always tell people you should go. I mean, there's this thing, and they talk about this in like Appalachian culture studies and all that, that people who grow up very poor, they value experiences over things. Because memories are something you can't lose, that can't be taken from you.
Yeah.
So we try to make memories.
Yeah.
And so that's what going to England was for me. It was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream.
Yeah.
It was something that I always wanted to do, but never thought would actually happen for me, because it just seemed so far out of my reach. And then also, I mean, like, it was what I'd been reading about for decades at that point. Hyde Park and Mayfair and St. Paul's Cathedral and all these things, I had only ever dreamed of seeing them. And then I actually got to be there. And it really does change your life.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
It's an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Like, my credit cards were very, very hurt for a very long time. It was all worth it.
I love it.
Terry says, maybe you should do a bourbon historical romance.
Ooh.
So, oddly enough, I have been thinking about writing a historical romance where the heroine is from, like, late 17th century, early 18th century Kentucky. going to England. That's been on my mind for a while. I just haven't, like, I haven't fleshed out the story enough in my mind to write it yet.
Yeah.
But it's not outside the realm of possibilities.
Fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
I do enjoy like heiress ones too, where you get like kind of like that fish out of water aspect of like.
Yes. I like the whole dollar princess thing of like the late 19th, very early 20th century. That whole thing is fascinating. I watched this documentary series on PBS, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I want to write that. And I did I pulled some of that in for the Victorian Gothic series, which, if you like dark and spooky, that is dark and spooky, but it is not a traditional romance novel in the sense that it ties up in one book. Like the relationship between these characters spans all 3 books, with them finally getting their happy ending at the end of it.
Okay.
If you like audiobooks, I would recommend getting that in audiobook format because my narrators are amazing. And like they do all these cool sound effects, and it's like it's almost like an old school radio show, but it's really good.
Oh my gosh, so fun.
So
I love that. How cool.
Yeah. Terry says Winston Churchill's mother was an American heiress, by the way.
Yeah, there was a lot of information about her in that documentary, and she was a doozy. She was an interesting woman.
Interesting.
I love the clash between the 2 cultures. I do too. Yeah. Those are some of my favorites.
Well, that's kind of like what the Hellion Club is, because are you all familiar with the premise of the series at all?
It's a school where these ne'er-do-well, is it dukes or just entitled gentlemen?
Any wealthy gentleman, like who had a daughter that was not born inside the bonds of matrimony, could send their daughter to this school so that she could learn to be a governess, because the employment options for women at that time were very limited. You could be a cook, you could be a maid, you could be a governess, or you could be paid for other things. That was pretty much it. That was all you could do.
Right.
So there's a lot of like upstairs, downstairs, clash of like socioeconomic status, and it's just a lot of fun to write. And you get to explore some of the darker, seedier aspects of life in Regency London that way.
Yeah. I do enjoy that as well too, because I feel like I've read a book recently. What was it? I think it was a Bridgerton one, but it was an offer from Bridgerton. Yeah. That like kind of did that, where it was the you got to see that she was a maid,
Yes, that was Benedict's story.
Yeah. And you kind of got that seedier side of what could have happened to her if he hadn't intervened. And I like that aspect. Now I know what I'm reading next.
I love it.
My
TBR just keeps on.
It's really nice to be able to write characters, because also, I mean, a lot of these girls were raised in not great situations, so they don't have the same degree of being sheltered that young women in society did. So they're a lot more knowledgeable. Some of them are not virgins.
What?
Some of them are older than, the typical characters.
Nice.
Like that too. It's good to have like a variety of types of characters, especially age-wise too, because we don't get that a lot.
No.
Yeah.
Especially in historical romances.
Yes.
I like to write characters that are not necessarily, 17-year-old girls marrying 32-year-old men, because that's kind of icky. I like to make most of the female heroines that I write are at least in their mid-20s. Some of them are in their 30s, and some of them are even like 40 and over.
Nice.
Because life expectancies might have been shorter then, but life didn't stop at 25.
Yeah.
So,
That's what society liked to tell you back then.
I know. They're wrong.
Wallflower in the corner. There you go. Just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and there's the market for that. I love Terry's latest comment. More historical romance with 50-year-old plus women. I love that. We need it. We do.
I don't think have I written a character that old? Maybe one. I can't really remember her specific age, but she had grown children.
Yeah. Nice.
And that was a novella for the Lost Lord series.
Right.
So,
okay. Awesome.
Do you feel like you could write, like, I guess, a variation, like, age-wise in novellas? Is it easier to write, because they're shorter and they're maybe...
I don't necessarily... The way the novellas come about for me is that there's usually a secondary character that I've written that I have, like, an idea percolating in my brain for, that I want to give them a story, but maybe I don't have a full book for them. Gotcha. And that's usually where that comes from. And the Lost Lord series is anybody else a true crime fanatic like me? Because I'm like a true crime nut.
I know a little bit, but I definitely know people who are way more into it.
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's a huge. I mean, people love it.
So I stumbled upon this story of Lord Lucan, who was this British aristocrat in the 1960s who was in the process of getting a divorce and was going to have to pay all this money that he didn't have because he was a gambling addict to his soon-to-be ex-wife. And so he tried to murder her. And he murdered the nanny by mistake. And then he vanished. Yeah. He was laying in wait for her in the dark in the kitchen, waiting for his wife to come down and make her nightly pot of tea. But the nanny's like, oh, I'll go make it for you.
No.
Yeah. It was horrifying. The way this sparked the Lost Lords series was that for 40 years, because Lord Lucan had been just vanished. Nobody knew where he was. Some people say he's dead. Some people say he's living in South America. Nobody knows. But here's this title. And it just lays there. And there's a son waiting to assume this title. But he can't, because nobody knows if the other Lord Lucan is dead or not. So it took them like 40 plus years to get this guy declared dead.
Oh, wow.
And that's where the Lost Lord series idea came from, because I'm like, these are all these people whose lives are just kind of in limbo because nobody knows what to do with this title.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the second book in that series is The Vanishing of Lord Vale, and it's his name is Benedict. He's abducted as a small child.
Oh.
And most people assume that he's dead, but his mother never gives up hope on him. She's convinced that he's still alive and that she would feel it if he weren't. She would know. Oh. So she's just, again, her life is in limbo. And her husband, his father, was just a horrible, horrible human being. But he died, and the person who's now in charge of the family finances is his brother. And so they're constantly at odds. The mom and the brother are constantly at odds over her efforts to find her son that he believes is dead. But obviously Benedict is not dead, because we have The Vanishing of Lord Vale, which is book 2.
That's great.
But then the mom and the brother wind up having their own story, because it wasn't just the money and the relationship entanglements that kept them at odds with each other. There was a connection there that they were both trying to fight. And you find that in A Midnight Clear, which is a Christmas novella that I did, where I put them together.
Okay.
So that that's a long, drawn out explanation of how I wrote a character who had grown children.
I like it though. We like it.
We do.
There is a method to it.
Also, sorry if you hear, my children are putting away groceries.
That's amazing. I think you should just if you need to show it. I mean, we're all going to be really proud.
I have proof. Just kidding.
But probably hearing Bluey coming from my living room.
Oh, Bluey. Yes.
You love some Bluey.
We love
Bandits are
Paige did
favorite.
say, yes, love stories don't just happen to 20-year-olds.
No, they don't. No.
That is accurate. Yeah.
Thank
Because
goodness.
you never know. Like, I also think too, like second chance romances, or even like, I was trying to think like whether that's through divorce or you're not going to find that very much in historical, or through death. I like reading those as well. And usually those are when I'm older.
Like there are a lot of interesting ways. I'm sorry. No.
Whatever you're about to say is better than what I was going to say. Trust me.
I was just going to say there are a lot of interesting ways to bring about a second chance romance in historical. Mm-hmm. And that is like, maybe these people wanted to get married and they couldn't, and they married other people, and then those people have died and they come back together, or, maybe this person is just sat around pining for their first love forever, who is somehow moved out of their life and now they're back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's a fun thing to write when you have somebody who's just pined for decades.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of perverse and mean, but it's fun.
Yeah. We do love a pining hero.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Paige did say too, all your series sound so good. My TBR is getting longer and longer, and the inspiration behind them is so interesting. Yes, it's always interesting to like hear the author's like perspective in a book, and like how it came about.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny, the things that spark a series or a story idea. Like they just sort of, they're so random, and they don't seem like they would spark a historical romance series, but they do.
I love it.
I do too.
So, and my husband hates my true crime obsession. He walks in the house and like, I'm either watching Hallmark movies or Murder and Death. There's nothing in between.
Two sides of the spectrum there.
So true. So true. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
that's funny. That's too funny.
So I was going to ask, unless there's any more, I was going to wrap up our little conversation. Unless anybody had any questions in the comments, or if you had anything to add. But I wanted everybody to know, like, what's your latest release so that they can go check it out. And obviously I'll add your Facebook as well so people can find you.
So, contemporary wise, the most recent release is called Heal Me One Night, and it is book 6 in the Bellhaven series, which is going to be a 10-book series, and they're all interconnected. So even though it is the 6th book, I would recommend starting at the beginning and working your way forward, because all those characters show up through the course of the book.
I do like when characters too, like that interconnectedness, even if it's just like for a bit.
Well, yeah, and that's the fun thing about small towns, is that you see the same characters that go to the same places.
That's so true.
Right. So, and then the Hellion Club, book 9, The Lady Confesses. You don't necessarily have to start all the way at the beginning of the Hellion Club, but if you're going to read book 9, you need to start with book 8, because those are very closely interwoven. And then obviously the anthology, A Wraith at Midnight. And I would be lying if I told you I remembered the title. I gave my story. I don't.
I deleted it. I had it. Oh, I forgot. I had it.
Like, I can tell you what the story was about, but the title is just gone from my head.
I typed everything down, and then I deleted it as I asked about it, and then I deleted it.
The Night We Met.
A lot of my books are titled after movies or songs.
Oh, that's interesting.
So The Night We Met is a song by a band called Lord Huron, which is like this moody, haunting, melancholy, kind of almost ethereal sounding song about, lost love and stuff. So
That's so
It's-
fun. I love would you say that your story itself is inspired by that song? I mean, I know it's the title, but or do you find themes of the song within the story?
So a lot of what I do with my writing process is that I make playlists.
I was just about to ask. I was like, "Are you a playlist maker?"
I am a
playlist.
I do a Pinterest board usually for every book so that I have a visual inspiration. And then I do a playlist on Spotify. And you can follow me on Spotify if you want to, and you can get access to the playlist.
So fun.
And they don't necessarily follow the actual story, but they follow the mood.
Okay.
So there's usually a specific mood or a tone that I'm aiming for in every book, whether I want it to be light and funny, or whether I want it to be dark and brooding, or whether I want it to be just angsty and raw. And so that's what you'll find on those playlists. So, and I love Lord Huron. They're an amazing band. So they pop up in a lot of my playlists.
Nice.
I haven't heard of them. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
And then Terry did say, "I like a good pun in a title." You and me both, Terry. You and me both. I'm a pun girl.
Yeah. And that's how Sleepless in Southampton came about.
I love it.
That's so awesome.
And Barefoot in Hyde Park. And A Robe to Remember was a take on An Affair to Remember.
Oh.
So,
I
yeah.
love it.
Those
And has anybody seen My Earl?
Yes, yes.
It's a good one too.
So, but sometimes that can be really hard because you start with a theme and you've got 7 titles, and then they ask you for 7 more books, and you're like,
Uh-oh.
oh.
Whoa.
Let me go to Wikipedia and find a list.
Oh my goodness.
That's great. I love it.
And then I know you mentioned you had a signing coming up. Is there do you have a list of events or anything? So if people were in the area?
So what I have going on right now is I know that I'm going to be doing the AuthorCon through the Toledo Public Library on November 2nd. And then I am going to be doing Book Lovers Con in Vegas in May.
Oh, fun.
I think I'm doing Roaring Readers at Read House, which is in Chattanooga, in June. And then in August, I'll be at Rockin' Readers in Knoxville.
Okay.
Nice.
And that's all I have planned for this year. I've kind of tried to slow down on events just because it's hard to. Nathaniel can't go to those things because everybody likes to have penises on their table and it gets weird.
Yeah,
finding somebody to keep my kid for like 4 whole days is not great.
Yeah.
So signings are limited now, unfortunately.
Oh God!
If you've not been to those things, I'm serious.
No, you're right. When I went to a Polycon this past April, there was some stuff displayed, and I was very surprised.
Yeah.
And there were also a few children there, and I was like, "Oh, that's special." Okay.
I don't want to have those conversations yet. I don't.
No.
No. Yeah. I have not been to one yet. I look forward to one day. I feel like where I'm located currently, there's not a lot. I guess the closest one would be in Texas to me.
Oh,
okay.
So, there used to be some in New Orleans.
There might. I'm newer to Louisiana, so I need to look into that. The only one I can think of, like I said, was that I know of is in Texas, but I'll look into New Orleans because you're probably right. There's probably a few.
That'd be fun.
If I think of any, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Because I get emailed requests and updates from some Facebook groups about author signings that are opening up. So if I come across any, I will happily pass that along.
Thank you.
A good time.
Yeah, I definitely it's on my bucket list to go to one.
My husband goes to all of those with me, and he, oddly enough, now his friends list on Facebook is, I think, more authors. And
Aw.
even a few readers and bloggers, they all love him.
Oh, so cute. I love that. That's so fun.
awesome. All right. Well, I just want to thank you so much for, being willing to join us and, writing this amazing book
Thank you so
that I
much.
enjoyed thoroughly. So, I mean, other than that, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, this has been great. Thank you all for having me.
Yeah, this was so
course.
fun. I always love chatting with authors, and I just
Right?
you're so fascinating. This was so much fun. It flew. The time just flew.
Yeah. I was
Oh,
going to
my
put,
goodness.
what did Paige? She said, thank you so much, Chastity, for writing the stories you do. My dark historical romance heart is so happy.
Thank
Yay.
you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that because I don't always feel like there's a lot of people who are open to what I write.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I used to read like Lauren Graham when she was like not her historical. I haven't read her historical yet, but like where she would like put the paranormal with the romance and the mystery. And I feel like this is very much similar in that paranormal aspect of it. And then the romance. And then you do get a bit of mystery because, obviously you don't know who is the killer. And, so I really enjoyed it. It reminded me, I was like, oh, I loved that when I was first started reading way back in the day. And I was like, I just love this aspect.
Yeah.
So
I am very flattered and very appreciative of you all reading my book. And I was very happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Vi said this was amazing. Thanks for giving a bit of insight into your author brain. We do love picking author brains. We do.
It's a scary place and nobody wants to be there alone.
Well, I know I could never be an author, so it's always interesting to see like how you guys come up with ideas, how you guys create like these amazing elaborate stories and characters, and like even like the covers of books. I'm like, wow, you guys are just like so creative. And that's just not me.
Most of the time, like, you don't know. Like, it just comes, it's just there. It's not like you're digging for it or reaching or constructing. It's just there. Maybe something will spark an idea, it'll percolate for a while, and then you just sit down and the words just go.
Wow.
Like, I don't write from an outline. I've never done that. I've never been a plotter. I literally start at page 1 and just write to the end.
Wow.
So.
And then do you obviously edit from like when you have the ending and then you go through? Or does somebody else edit?
I do hire an editor to go through the book afterwards, but like I will self-edit as I go along. Like I'll write like a couple of chapters, then I'll go back and reread them and fix anything. And then I'll just move on. And then if I get to a point in a story where I feel like I'm stuck, it's usually because I feel like I've deviated from who the characters are. Like if they do something that is out of character and I haven't given a good reason for it, then you feel like you've written yourself into a corner. So I go back, reread until I find the spot where it went sideways, and then I fix that and move forward.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. That's interesting to know. Yeah, too.
We love to learn the process.
We do. It's just so intriguing because it's not something that I am obviously familiar with on a day-to-day. I read a lot, and so I see that finished product, but to hear like I said, how it comes about and how, different authors do things, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Again, I'm on Facebook. If any of you have any other questions or if you have anything you want to know about any of the books, please feel free to message me.
Yeah, and I'll leave the Facebook in the description box below so people can access it as well. And then I left your Goodreads and I left Instagram already. But I'll add Facebook because that's where you said you're mainly at.
Yeah.
But Paige says, thank you, ladies. This was a fun afternoon. And then Terry's like, we need Bourbon Heiress HR.
I will work on that.
Into the world.
Manifested, it will happen.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome.
Right. So thanks everyone for joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and say goodbye. So have a good one.
All right. Bye. Thank you all.
Bye. Let me see. Oh, there it goes.